So we are going to start by marking out our pattern. And after that we punch our brogue on all the places necessary. Now if you look closely, I have skived this part of the leather. So we are going to apply gum on the rail, that is the joining allowance, so that we can be able to couple the pattern. So here you can see you give here some slight cut, that's on this curve, and also on this curve here you can see the slight cut, and then you fold this, the collar part of the pattern. So that's that. So let's continue with the application of gum on the joining allowance. So after applying gum on this joining allowance and also on this one, you draw your center line from the pattern so that it will help you to align the pattern. So you just place your raw file like this, mark the both sides, and then use your ruler to join the two dots together to get the center line on the pattern. I have done the same on the other part of the pattern, so it will help me to align it properly on the other quarter. So you gently align the pattern to one another. Make sure you don't make mistake about that. So our lines are still there, so it helped to make sure the pattern was aligned properly. So that is on this part. So just tap your hammer around it to make sure that it bonded properly. So we move over to the other half of the pattern, which is the counter. So we do the same. We use we already have our guidelines on the pattern, so you just align it according to the dots, the dotted lines. You have to be careful, because if you make mistake while aligning the patterns, it will affect your lasting, and also it will affect the whole pattern entirely. So we have to be careful. We have to make sure we align it properly according to the dotted lines. So the next one that I am aligning now is the collar. The collar, we have the collar with the less holes together, so it has to come on this half too. So at this center here, we are going to arrange the joint here. We are going to also skive off some leathers here so that we can have a flat joint. You know, at this point, a lot of leather has come to this part, the center. So after skiving it off, we're going to have a flat surface, and we are done with this half. You can see that. So the two halves are ready now. We're going to go over to the sewing machine to do some stitching, and then we come back to cut out our lining. So you can see that we're going to stitch around here and here too. So let's move on to the next step. So after stitching, you're going to leave the collar opening. You stitch the rest and leave the collar opening, and then you place your pattern, the two halves, on your lining, and then you mark out the shape. So after marking out the shape of your counter, you're going to be adding at least ½ inch around the original shape. That is the allowance we're going to be making it. So you just add at least ½ inch around the original shape. So we mark out the other half too. And after that, we are going to cut them into shape. So now we have gotten our lining, and now we are going to align the two halves together before we attach our lining. So you fold this counter into two equal parts, and then use your masking tape to hold the two of them to make sure that they are folded into two equal parts, into two halves. So you hold it with your masking tape. The reason is to make sure it doesn't move while you are trying to align the other half to it. So we're going to align the other half now. So you watch closely to see how I am placing the other half on the other one. So in this step, we have to be careful, make sure we align it properly, because if we make any mistake, it will affect the whole pattern. So that is why you have to be careful and do it with time. You don't need to rush it. You have to take your time. Understand? I don't think we have it. I don't think. So we have to start again. We have to start again. So you have to take your time make sure you align it properly so that you can get the whole pattern in shape. If you get the aligning properly, your lace holes will be at the center of the center line, and if you didn't get it properly, you will have shortage at the end of the other side. So these are the clue to tell you whether you are getting it correctly or not. The lace line has to be on the center line, and on the other side, if you don't get it properly, you will have a shortage on the other side of it, which means you have to start again. So those are just the clue on how to know when you are getting the alignment properly. So we are done joining the two halves together now. You can now remove the masking tape. So you can see that you can tap your hammer around the rail, and the next thing we're going to do now, we're going to stitch the line of the joint. We're going to stitch it, and also the counter opening here, we stitch here too, stitch here too. So we have done the stitching, and this is our lining. Also, we did the same on our lining. So we're going to, the lining is going to go this way. So we're going to apply gum on the edges of the collar opening, and also on the edges of the counter lining here, and also around this part. That's what we are going to do now. So the gum has dried now, so we align the lining to the upper. So you fold the lining into two halves to make sure you place it at the center, that's at the counter of the upper. Make sure you place it at the center. Place it at the center of the counter, and then you start from that point. You begin to align it towards the lace holes. So you remember we already have lines on the lining, so you just follow the line as a guide, and then it will help you to align the lining to the upper counter. So we are done with this part. We're done with it. So we're going to attach the other part of it. So you need to watch closely because it's a bit tactical. So this one is going to go under this one. So we have aligned them the way they should be. You can see that. So now we're going to mark out the point where they met each other. Going to, where is this marking big? So you mark out the point where they met each other. You're going to apply gum. That is why you have to mark it out. You mark it out, just apply gum within that place and bond the two of them together. So but because of time, I'm going to be using glue for this. I'm supposed to use gum for it, but because of time, I'm going to use this glue to bond the two of them together. It will serve the same purpose anyway. So now we can stitch the collar opening round, and after that we cut off the excess lining at the collar opening. So you can see what we have here. We can be able to move the lining away from the upper, so it makes the lasting easier. So the next step, now we move over to the lasting. So watch closely. You see where I'm placing the counter. You don't have to pull it to position first. Just leave it above the counter point, and then you pull the cap. Exert a minimum pressure on the cap, and then you pin it. So now you can now pull the counter to position. Once you pull it to the position, to the counter point, you now pin it to with your tack nail. So we're going to pull along the widest part now. We're going to pull the both sides. Make sure your lining aligns with the upper. When you would pull the both sides, and we pull this side too. So once we have aligned the lining and the upper together on the insole, we have to pull away the upper and then we last the lining first. That is what we're going to do. So we have aligned the upper and the lining properly on the last, so we have to pull away the upper and line and last only the lining. So you have to use a ribbit or your nails at the back here so that you can be able to get the curve, and also it will give you room to make amends if necessary. So this is how far we can go with the ribbit, the pins or the nails. So the next thing now, we're going to apply our gum and then do the final lasting of the lining. So once you are done lasting the lining, you cut off the crease. So I am using Mako as my front stiff and even the back stiff. So I just want to use it in this project. So it is just a Mako 2mm. I've been using it before now, so it works for me. If you have any other choice of material, you can use that, but I use Mako 2mm. So we are done with the stiffness. So the next thing now, we are going to apply gum on both the upper and the lining before we pull it down. So we apply gum on both the upper and the lining. While pulling it down, your two thumbs will do the job. Just use your two thumbs, press the upper down to the lining. We have to pin our collar opening to the last so that it won't move while we are pulling the upper. This video cannot carry everything, so in the next video we are going to be seeing how to attach the sole, because the sole we are going to be using is a crafted sole, a welted sole. So that will be the next video, and after that one we are going to also have a video on how to craft the pattern, how to draw the pattern and how to develop it. So don't forget to subscribe if you have not, and also hit the bell icon to get updates as soon as the video on how to construct and attach the sole drops. Drop your questions in the comment section. You know this video cannot contain all the steps, so just feel free to ask your questions. Thank you for watching. Have a nice day, and see you in our next video.